going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our twice-weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this week, or today, I should say, because again, it's twice a week, we are back for Assault on New Phyrexia, Episode 2, Unstable Foundations by Shawna McGuire. So if you're unfamiliar, this is the Phyrexia All Will Be One stories, just because it's not technically in there at all, so I just felt like I should mention. My quick review at the top of this one is fine. It takes a while to get going. A while. When it's good, it's good. It's just that it's in the last, quarter of the story. So.
I was gonna say eighth.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, is that your quick review then?
Yeah.
What he said, but eighth instead of quarter.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that. And again, I'll say what I said last time we did a JaAR, which is I was really excited for Shawna McGuire to be the author of these stories, and, she didn't get to shine in them, or hasn't really yet at all.
Okay. So, if that makes the story seem interesting, that's usually what I say. If you still are interested in checking out the story for yourself, you don't have to take our word for it. We won't be offended. The top link in the description down below will take you straight to this story so that you can read it for yourself, formulate your own opinions, or remind yourself of it if you've read it already. And then we would love it, of course, if you would come back here either way and join in on the discussion. The comment section down below is for you. That's where you can go to leave your thoughts. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Did you like this story? Did you dislike it? Let us know. That's what it's for. So please keep the conversation going. That's what we aim for around here.
Yeah. So. Are there things we forgot to mention?
Yes, for sure.
Are there things that had significance to you that didn't have significance to us, and that's why we didn't mention it?
Sure.
But you noticed it and you felt it, and it was real and important for you.
Well, I was going to say, and whether that means it's something that you enjoyed that we didn't talk about, or something that bothered you that we didn't talk about. Either way, or anything in between, comment section down below. You can leave as many as you need. We will read them all. If we feel that they need to be responded to, we'll respond to them, but we want to hear from you, because our voices are not the only ones that matter here. We want to hear from all of you as well. Exactly. So, before we get onto the full review itself, just a quick thing. Hi, thank you for being here. Welcome to the channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so that you'll get notifications whenever any of our videos come out. We're also live every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Mondays we play MTG Arena, so if you're a fan of Magic, we would love it if you would come back here. In fact, it's tonight, the day that this video comes out, so we would love to have you. It's usually whatever limited format happens to be going on in MTG Arena at the time. And then Fridays, we play whatever video game we happen to be playing at the time as well. And this Friday, we will be hopefully finishing. At this point, I'm a liar so often, but we are going to be trying to beat Shadow of the Colossus. And hopefully that will be the finale this week. I guess I can't make any promises, but we're going to try. And we would love to have you there as well. But that's enough of that. On to the full review itself. This was the rest of the Planeswalkers that we didn't hear from last time, combined with the ones that we did hear from last time, that weren't the ones that are lost. Right? Nissa, Vraska, Luca, the Wanderer technically as well.
She's always lost, though.
Wow. Yeah, those who wander are never lost? Is that the joke? Those who never wander are lost? What's the thing? Anyway, so we somewhat got an answer to a question that I had raised in the last video, which if you didn't get it, I pointed up at the iCard in the top corner while Amy was talking. I didn't want to interrupt her, but you can click that iCard or tap that iCard to go watch our last video where we talked about episode 1 of this main story, because now we are here for episode 2, if you missed it. Nissa seemed to also have been kind of snapped away like a rubber band, where she was kind of forced to planeswalk away in a different direction or whatever, similarly to what happened to the Wanderer. So originally I had said that I thought it was stupid because they were being a little inconsistent with her powers again, and that like you would think she would get better because they've been adding new powers for Kaya, so I hope I'm forgiven for feeling like they were messing with powers too much. Now it seems like that's just part of the traps that were set by Elish Norn / the Phyrexians, is that a planeswalker who tries to planeswalk here might get kind of pushed away or pulled back to where they originally came from and not be permitted to stay. And like I said, that seems to have happened to the Wanderer and to Nissa. So.
Yeah, which I feel like was a little convenient, but whatever. Of all the things about these stories all the time that there are to complain about, that's not the highest on the list by far.
Speaking of things to complain about, Amy, I have 2 quotes here that you wanted me to read off.
Yes.
First was Kaito talking about the Wanderer, where he said, "Before she departed for the blind eternities."
Yeah, as if it was like a vacation for her. It's like, dude, what the fuck?
Peace, guys. Going to the blind eternities. See you later.
I'll have a Mai Tai for you.
And then
like, no, before she was ripped from the plane that she was trying desperately to stay on.
she casually departed for the blind eternities. It's fine.
She had her suitcase packed.
Yep, her sword on her back. She was ready to go.
You know.
If the picture that we saw in the last story is any indication, she forgot her hat, but otherwise she's fine. She left it behind. Okay, so
she'll like Indiana Jones it in the end. She'll
yeah,
like find it. It like went under a stone door, and she's got to like pull it out before the stone falls all the way down or something.
That's right. That's right.
So dumb.
And then Kaya and who? Oh, no. Elspeth and Kaya, that's who. Sorry, I was like, who was with Kaya again?
I was like, nobody.
Elspeth
Nobody
and Kaya are the 2 who start this story. They then go down and meet up with everybody else that we have seen so far. Kaito, Nahiri, Tyvar. We also find Jace down here. And by the way, I guess I should say, I think for this review, we try not to do it usually, but they've revealed all who have been Phyrexianized already. I think for this review, we have to talk about it. So, spoilers, I suppose, for the stories, because this story doesn't reveal who has been completed, but we have to talk about it, at least with some. So, I just want to warn ahead of time, if you don't know, maybe this isn't the one for you. And if you are upset that we're doing that, please leave it in the comments so that we know, please, because that helps us out immensely. Like, if you don't care and we don't hear from anybody in the comments, like, please don't be ashamed to be like, oh, I'm following along with you guys for it, so please don't spoil it. We're going to for this one, but if you leave it in the comments, we will make sure not to do it in the future.
Right. If that's like something that is something that bothers you about our videos, is that we'll kind of do that sometimes. I mean, we tend to let you know ahead of time if we realize it, but yeah.
Yeah, and this story very much kind of, I feel, necessitates it, which is why we're doing so. Apologies for that. Like I said, do not hesitate even for a second. Let us know in the comments if you don't like that, because we want to be able to make that better for you. But with that being said, we see Jace as well, and something that I was a little annoyed by is that the art that they used for the filigree Silex had Jace with the metal hand and with the snaky things coming out of him, looking at it while he was holding the Silex.
I didn't even see that.
Mm-hmm. And I was like,
that's so messed up.
Yeah.
That's so messed up.
Yeah. Go look at it. The link is in the top link of the description. Just scroll until you find the picture of the Silex. It's like the second or third one. It's blatantly his metal hand. It's this hand as well when you're looking at it, right? So you're looking at it, so it's your left, his right. That's the metal hand, and you have the little, like, snaky eyeball things from the surgical floor or whatever.
I didn't even see it.
Just blatantly there. All over the picture. And it's just like, this story is so before we find anything about that out.
Yeah, it's messed up.
So that was part one of that. We'll talk more about that. You had a comment about this quote from Tyvar.
Yeah.
Talking to Kaya, where he says, I should have known there was no sense in worrying about you. Skies above, you'd be someone else entirely if you didn't fall into danger at the slightest opportunity.
Yeah, I had you write that down because it felt like really chauvinistic. Okay, so because I'm female, I can't be an assassin on a job, essentially. Like, I'm here for the purpose of saving the multiverse from a fucking Phyrexian invasion. And you're gonna joke that I fell into trouble and that's why I'm here? Wow.
So...
It's like those people on the internet that are like, people love being catcalled, right?
God, that video. Oh, I hated that. Especially because it felt like that man was in New York City.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but like, we're New Yorkers, and like, that man is not an indication of our entire state, I promise.
God, no.
But at the same time, ugh, so gross.
It's a compliment when I catcall them.
Oh.
No.
Oh,
You're
God.
disgusting,
Oh,
actually.
and he was disgusting. Let's be real about that for a minute. That man was disgusting.
Like, it's one thing if you know a person and you do, like, creepy jokes or whatever because you're familiar with them and they are aware that it is a joke. But, like, that's a whole nother thing. To just be, like, catcalling strangers on the street and it's a compliment? No.
When he ever...
Go fuck yourself, dude.
When he ever had been doing it for such a long period of time, and then at the end of it he was like, wait, this is a video about how people don't like being catcalled? It's like...
News to you, is it?
That was a disgusting and vile human being.
God.
It was so gross. Anyway, that's not at all what we're here to talk about.
No,
I'm like...
sorry, guys.
I'm like crying. That's
Took it
so
to a
bad.
very different place.
Anyway.
But yeah, that's what that line felt like to me. It was like, ew, get the hell out of here. Like, she's gonna do much better at this whole mission than you could probably dream of doing. So get the fuck out.
So I will say this story helps us to know the plan. If we didn't know it already, we now know the full plan, which is that they're here with the Silex. They're going to take the Silex to the seed core level to destroy Elish Norn's grown world tree that she is trying to use to connect from New Phyrexia to all of the other planes, or many other planes.
Or I guess just the blind eternities so that then it can, like, seep into the other planes without her having to do anything, right? Or some variation thereof.
I assume it's to the other planes, because otherwise how do those plane-bound individuals come back? And how do the Phyrexians come back? Because if they enter a plane and there's not the world tree into that plane, how do they get back to the blind eternities from the other plane that they've gone into?
Well, I didn't assume they were going.
What do you mean?
I assumed that they were putting the, like, chemical warfare spores shit into the other planes.
No, that wouldn't cover a whole plane. No, they're going there.
Alright. Yeah, I guess I just didn't really think that part through.
I mean, they don't really talk about it heavily because we haven't heard from the Phyrexians a lot in this yet. We had the one side story so far with Atraxa, but it wasn't talking about that aspect of it, so... by the way, the Phyrexian world tree is called Realm Breaker, if people care. Then we get to Malera. Now, Malera, in the last story that we reviewed, episode 1, was used as an exposition machine. Because the planeswalkers who showed up in that respect, Kaito the Wanderer, Nahiri, and Tyvar, were used as stand-ins for us. They don't understand what's going on, and neither do we, so Malera is going to explain to them what is going on, but really it's to explain to us what is going on. Because if we already knew what was going on, we wouldn't need that part in the story. But for that story, we did. We needed to know that the top layer could be broken through, and you could get down into the lower layer, and she's immune, and etc. That's important information to have, but at the same time, she literally was just there as like an exposition dump or a lore vomit or whatever you want to call it. Like, she let them all know, aka us, know what's going on. Which is why there wasn't as much, or one of the reasons, not the only, because go watch our video, but one of the reasons why there wasn't as much substance to the last video or the last episode, because it needed to get all that information out.
Yeah, and it's annoying to have that be part of the story, because then there's no story to the story.
Yes.
It's just a list of facts. And if you wanted to read that, you could just read an article of a list of facts, as opposed to, you know, it being incorporated into the story, but then it's not really incorporated. It just takes it up.
It's so funny that you should bring that up, Amy. Did you know that there is an article that's essentially just a list of facts about new planes that we go to every time we go to a new plane, or in this case, a plane that we've been to before, and it's not new, but still, it's new because it's a newer set?
Well, I feel like I've never heard of this.
Really?
Because they certainly don't really advertise it or
So
put it up. Or...
if you are new to JaAR from Phyrexia All Will Be One, this won't make sense to you. But every single set, we review the Planeswalker's Guide to blank, right? So in this case, the Planeswalker's Guide to New Phyrexia, or Phyrexia All Will Be One, the Planeswalker's Guide to Zendikar Rising, the Planeswalker's Guide to Streets of New Capenna, or whatever you want to call it. There's always a Planeswalker's Guide. But this newer group of authors and writers decided, for whatever reason, that you don't need to know about the plane prior to reading the stories. You need to know about it after the set has come out, after all the stories have come out, and wait a little while. And even though it is written as if it is telling you about the lore, right? It is not.
It's a foundational piece of information.
Right. It is not an article written by, let's say, Mark Rosewater, where he says, hey, we designed new Phyrexia this way because of X, Y, and Z. And it's got this because of this. No. It is written as, New Phyrexia is a plane of metal. And Elish Norn did this thing as if Elish Norn is a real person when this is being written, right? As opposed to, if Mark Rosewater were talking about it, where he would say, we, meaning research and development, designed the plane a particular way because that's how it would work for the mechanics of the cards. And they like talk about the technical aspects of it and talk about like, oh, right, human beings here on Earth wrote about Phyrexia and made these characters and this plane and these mechanics. But no, the Planeswalker's Guide is written as if it is a real thing. Like, Elish Norn does this thing, and this is what the Mirrans are doing, and over here is Jin Gitaxias's shell or layer of the plane, etc. It's written.
And here's what differentiates the different colors in this format. You know, you got, you know, these guys really like doing this thing or whatever. It's like a whole thing.
Right.
That was information used to design the set that was put out. So it was preparatory. It was prior to them actually putting all the elements together and executing it finally.
Yes. And yet it comes out well after the stories have come out. And I say well after because even if it's like 2 weeks, that's longer than it took for all 10 stories to come out. So it's well after. Don't at me. But also...
And like, at that point you no longer need the information because you've piecemeal been learning it by being told that throughout the stories.
Or flat out not understood it, not cared to know, and moved on with your life.
Right.
Because clearly it wasn't something they wanted you to know, otherwise they would have given you the article ahead of time.
Right.
Also, I've said it a million times, and I'm sure I will say it a million times more, until they fix it, just have another tab with the Planeswalker's Guide on your story tab. Don't know why it's not there. dumbest shit I've ever heard. If you don't Google it, you will never find the article because it is under the feature section and you gotta scroll and you have to like know when it was released or scroll forever to try to find it.
Or release it as though it is the first story of every single
New set
of stories that come out. Just Planeswalker's Guide is episode 1.
Yep.
And everything else comes after.
Yep. There's no reason not to. The Planeswalker's Guides are not written with spoilers in them, right? The last Planeswalker's Guide that we read or one of the last ones that we read for Dominaria United didn't even talk about the fact that a Johnny was completed. So if you're hiding the fact that a Johnny was completed, then you're not spoiling the story in any capacity, so why wouldn't you put it out early? Anyway, we've talked about it before, we'll talk about it again another time, but hey, guess what? If you had the Planeswalker's Guide come out prior to this story would have had a massive chunk punched right out of the center of it that they wouldn't have needed because it was literally Malera explaining every layer of New Phyrexia to the Planeswalkers. If the Planeswalker's Guide existed, you wouldn't need to do that. If it was on your story tab, you wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah, because people could literally read it as though it was the first story, but that would be their info dump, right?
Yes.
And then the first story could be an actual story instead of a story where most of it is an info dump.
By the way, just getting in ahead of this, if and when they do anything like what you just mentioned or what we have been mentioning for a very long time, if they do, and they turn around and say, well, we did it, but nobody reads it. Yes, because you have definitely done your job to show how important it is for people to read it. So yes, I think they should, but also they should realize that if and when they make that change and no one reads it, you only have yourselves to blame. So again, don't come at me at that point and be like, oh, but Joe and Amy, you guys said that it would make more sense and now nobody's reading it. Yeah, because the story team doesn't even think it makes sense for people to read it beforehand. But it does, because it helps you to better understand the plane that you're on and the motivations behind the individuals who are there and the workings of the plane. But you wouldn't need Malera to, again... Sorry, go ahead. You looked like you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, doing it that way would allow your authors to actually shine and do what they're good at, which is writing stories, as opposed to just listing facts.
Yeah, because otherwise they're shackled to, all of this information needs to come out in this story. Oh, and you have this many words to do so. It's like, you just took half my words because I had to get all this stuff out.
It's more than half.
So, Malera, in this story, has Nahiri make a ball and then make layers on top of the ball so that it can show what the layers of New Phyrexia are and explain it to them and explain it to us. But the Planeswalker's Guide absolutely would have explained it. Hell, Cool Stuff Inc., I believe, .com, not a sponsor, but Cool Stuff Inc. has Jay and Nelly writing for them. Jay and Nelly also works for Wizards in the capacity of helping them with the stories, like making sure he's the lore master, I think is his title or whatever. He wrote an article dictating all of this that we have already read.
Right.
So we already knew all of this information.
Yep.
Guess what? If you'd written a Planeswalker's Guide, everyone would have known it. But instead, only people that read that one article from a third-party source that one of your contract employees works for or writes for, only those people got to know that information ahead of time. Why? Why would you not want the exclusive on that? I don't understand. You let a third party get the scoop on you. It's your company. It's your story. It's your employee.
There's a lot of...
I'm so confused.
There are a lot of things about Wizards where you're like, it's your company. Figure it out. But they just won't.
Nope. Outsource, 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 right? That's the... Anyway. So that bothered me a lot because a large portion of this story was Malera exposition dumping again, even though one Planeswalker's Guide article, just one, would have covered all of that. And we wouldn't have needed it in this story at all. And then again...
Which would have been great, especially since the whole of last story was that.
Yep.
They could have had 2 more stories with actual story in them.
Yep. Yeah. Actual, like, depth and analysis and character work instead of, here's all this information, you need it, so I have to throw it up at you. You don't. That's what the Planeswalker's Guide's for. If it's gonna come out anyway, why not have it come out first and let your authors breathe? Because when Shawna McGuire is allowed to do what Shawna McGuire does, she does it damn well. Go watch our review of the Liliana story.
Yes.
And listen to Amy, I love you, talk for over an hour about how much she loved it.
Just got goosebumps from you saying, just calling it the Liliana story. What the hell? It's fucking amazing. Like, literally. And it's the only reason I can ever like Liliana again. And when I say again, I really mean ever. Because I just never liked her. Shawna McGuire is an incredible author, and an incredible person. Her wisdom and intelligence and just the scope of the things that she knows how to beautifully cram into a story. It's just insane what she can do. Her level of talent, it's insane. And these stories do not even come close to scratching the surface of the iceberg.
And again, we believe, which is why we're saying it this way, our opinions, welcome to the show, we believe it's because she is shackled to what needs to be portrayed in these main stories, because don't forget that Liliana story was a side story. And there was definitely information that needed to come across in that story, but the parts of it that didn't need to come across gave all the freedom to be able to fill the rest of that space.
Well, and she was allowed to make the important points be part of the story.
Yeah.
And it actually got to be that, as opposed to just bullet points that had to be hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I pointed while Amy was talking again, didn't want to interrupt her, but that video will also be linked up at the top for you. I highly encourage you to go check it out.
Really. Honestly, if there's any of these stories that you ever read, please let it be that one. Please.
It's the Liliana Ravenman story, by the way, for people who are unaware. Okay. And I think it was from Dominaria United. It would have to be. It was back on Dominaria. So yeah, that would make sense. Then we get some interesting moments with Malera and Jace, right? So this is where they're talking about the Silex, and we get the picture with completed Jace with the Silex, like real stupid. Yeah. But because we're talking about the Silex, they just shoehorned that picture in there and hoped nobody would notice. But Malera, as we've seen a lot of plane-locked individuals do, Malera calls out Jace, / all of the Planeswalkers, really, and says, hey, my plane, not yours, what are you going to do to it?
Right.
Tell me what you're going to do to my plane before I help you.
Right.
And, yeah. And she says, because she says, what are you going to try? Like, what is that thing going to do? How are you going to try to get rid of this tree? And you made a point, I don't know if you want to like try to read that or have me read it or whatever.
Well, so what he says is like, oh, we're gonna blow the tree up with the Silex.
And he's like, based on my calculations, it should only blow up the tree and not do massive damage to the plane if the plane hasn't been changed more than we know it has. And she's like,
It's
well,
like, of course it has.
and she's like, well, here's how it's been changed. And that's when she does the metal ball thing with Nahiri, and we get the exposition dump, and then Jason's like, oh, so it has changed a lot more than we know.
Doy. But also,
Yeah.
that really just meant that his calculations were irrelevant.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to.
But yeah, so what I had you write down was basically just, I feel like in that scenario, what would normally make sense would be like, okay, like this plane has already gone to hell basically because we weren't fast enough to stop it. We're here, and what we're trying to do is stop it from happening to all these other planes as well. So all we're trying to do is, you know, essentially finish sacrificing this one to, you know, for the greater good of protecting all these other planes from having it happen to them too, right? And so that would normally be what would happen in, you know, a movie where we're gonna blow up the tree, you know.
Right. This town will be lost, but
but you know, but you can't say that here because you're saying it to people who can't move. You know, it like as you put it before, plane locked individuals can't go to the planes that got saved while theirs was getting blown up.
Yep. Yeah. And my response to that was not yet. Because you see, we've already been shown the like teaser art for March of the Machines, which showed Chandra, who is a planeswalker and could be anywhere she needs to be. Essica, the god from Kaldheim, who cannot be anywhere but Kaldheim. Boral, who is an asshole, and from Kaladesh. I'm not going to remember the name of the dragon, but a dragon from, one of the dragons from Kamigawa. I don't think it was Ao the Dawn Sky. I know I said that before. It was Kairi. Kairi, the blue dragon from Kamigawa. Borborigmos from Gruul on Ravnica. And probably others that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, all in the same place. But that's not this set. That's March of the Machines.
Right.
So that brings all of those people together. Because, by the way, just throwing it out there, if I had a dime for every time I said that Wizards was trying desperately to have their story be Marvel's story, I'd be a very rich man. Because if you're unaware, because we talked about the fact that we're going to be spoiling things, this is the set where they lose. AKA, this is Infinity War. And all those completed Planeswalkers are the ones that got snapped. That's it, they're gone. They get dusted, they go away. And then March of the Machines is Endgame. So you're going to have like a real tired Tyvar or Elspeth with her sword broken in half and the halo spilled everywhere. And she's going to be panting and still ready to fight with her broken sword that's nothing against all of the Phyrexians who are going to try to kill her. And then all these portals will open up from all these other planes. And who's someone who flies? Let's say Malcolm from Ixalan. Yeah, that's right, I went there. Malcolm from Ixalan, the pirate who worked with Veraska, is going to be like, Elspeth, on your left, and fly in, and everyone's going to be there to save the day. It's just
my God.
I'm telling you right now, if that's not what happens, like, I would be surprised if that's not what happens. Let's put it that way. Right? Because Wizards is like, oh, Marvel made so much money. We like money. Let's just do what they did, but later and worse. And so that's what this...
Guys, I've got this great idea.
What if we do...
We'll just copy this other thing that was good. And then people will think that what we did was good. What do you say, guys?
Hey, you know what? I've called myself Joe Stradamus before. That's my prediction. We'll see if it happens. But that's sure what it feels like. Come back to us. Stay tuned. Subscribe. Ring the bell for March of the Machines so that you can see if I was right. And if not, definitely make sure to throw it in my face. Be like, oh, Joe, you said this was going to be like Endgame, and everybody was going to... And it doesn't look like that now, does it?
Kyrie wasn't there. It was Dawn Sky.
Was that everybody? Anyway, so yeah, definitely. That's what I think is going to happen. We will see. Because they've tried to be Marvel for a long time. That was years ago. Because it was in our other apartment where we talked about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was that long ago?
Yup. That was years ago now.
That's depressing.
Yup. Talk about this, and then I will turn the page and we can talk about more. But
oh yeah, when
Malera.
Sorry. When Malera asked Nahiri what her control was like of her power, I was just like, seriously, lady? And then I was like, she doesn't know, Nahiri. It's fine. Cool it down, Amy. It's gonna be okay.
Amy likes Nahiri a little bit.
and then Nahiri says, oh, better than everyone else here. I was just like, there's no way Nahiri would have said that. Realistically speaking, Nahiri probably wouldn't have said anything. She probably would have just done it.
And speaking of which, then there was also the line where Kaya is discussing Nahiri, and you said this. There's this here, but it's supposed to be there as well. So just read that line, and I apologize because I messed up.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I said how funny it was that Kaya thinks she's seeing anywhere near the extent of Nahiri's power because she's like, making orbs or whatever.
She makes a ball and holds it there and then adds more to it and then adds more to it and then adds more to it and then adds more to it.
Yeah.
It was for a long time, right? I'm not so for most planeswalkers, that amount of control of their powers and extended use of their powers would probably be quite taxing. But Nahiri is millennia old. She's real old.
Yeah.
She was locked in a rock for a long time, and then she was locked in a hell vault for a long time. So this lady is old, and she is used to...
And pissed.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Yep.
And Kaya's just like, oh, this is what old walkers can do. No.
No, it ain't.
Shut up and get out.
And also...
But it's funny that Tyvar did that to Kaya, and then Kaya did it to Nahiri. And it's like, wow. The layers of ignorance that are piling is absurd.
Sure. And in fact, it leads us, I guess, into this next quote of what Nahiri says. So, genuinely, I think, a very interesting moment to this story, and that's why I said I think this is where it starts to get good, is at this part, but it's so late in the story that, you have to wait for all that. It's Malera and Nahiri having a conversation with one another about Nahiri having that bit of Phyrexia on the back of her neck, right? That metal hard thing there. And they have a conversation about it because Malera's like, I thought so. I suspected it, whatever. Which we saw in the last story. And she says, Nahiri says to Malera in a genuine vulnerable moment, after everything I've done for the multiverse, this shouldn't be how it ends. It's not right.
Nahiri has spent literal millennia of her life doing things to protect planes.
Yep.
With no appreciation from a single goddamn person.
It's true. 100% true.
Ever. Straight up.
Yep. Correct. Absolutely correct. No question.
And people who learn her story after that point, still not even a thank you, or a, oh my god, wow, you're inspiring, or
I don't know that she talks about it, to be fair. Like, not to take anything away from her. I'm just saying, like, and not to necessarily defend other people. I don't know how often she's like, hey, remember when I spent like hundreds of years locked in a rock watching aliens?
But that's not the point.
You know?
Like, Ugin knows. Soren knows.
Correct.
Jace at this point knows. Nissa knows. And not a single one of them was like, oh my god, you are actually incredible. I am so sorry for everything that has happened to you. And I want to be half the person you are. Not a single person has ever fucking come close to saying that to her. And then they go and try and make her evil in one of the other stories. It's like, are you fucking serious?
Oh, the Zendikar Rising ones, you mean?
Like, come on.
Yeah.
This was like the first moment of this story where it actually was like an impactful storytelling moment. And it truly is just somebody finally grieving over what WotC has essentially done to Nahiri's character.
And
from the beginning of her lifespan to now the end, if you're saying that Phyrexianizing her is the end of her lifespan.
And so this is such a cool moment because Malera's like, I can help you. I'll help you. This won't. You're not too far along. You're fighting. Your body is strong, and you are strong, and we'll use some of this hex gold dust to help you. So sprinkle some of that on there. It doesn't seem to fully work, but she tells her to try it, and she says, "Okay, it didn't work, but I can still help you. So I'll use my abilities on you, but you're going to be out of commission for this fight. Do we need you for this?" And the answer is yes. They need Nahiri for this. And so Malera says, okay, well then we fight now and we help you later. We fix you later. But Malera flat out says to her basically, we can fix you. It will just be later versus now. And then it all gets completely undercut. Again. By Wizards. Again. Shawna McGuire does a great job of writing this here. The story is great. It really leaves you on a cliffhanger of, I need to know what happens, but there's hope. There's actual hope there that you can hold on to and say, you know what? It's going to be okay.
And like you said before, there's vulnerability. There's truth.
Yeah. There's a bonding moment between those two characters who have never met one another before.
The writing is beautiful. There's a level of strength to these two women as they're communicating with each other. It's a beautiful, well thought out, well written, warm, gorgeous piece of the story.
And then right after it, later that same day, which means there are no other stories that were released that day. This story is the last one that came out that day. And then later on that day, Wizards went, oh, the story's out. Guess what? Nahiri was completed. Here's her card. Was she completed? Because Malera told her that she could be helped. Spoilers, I guess, she doesn't get helped. Not that you would know that from reading the story. but you would know it from the card that they revealed and chose to reveal immediately the same day that these two stories came out. The last story that we reviewed and then this one.
Yep.
It ruins it. It ruins it. Why? Why would you do it that way? How does it make any sense in your tiny, stupid mind to do that? Truly. I would love an explanation for how that makes any sense to anyone.
Yep.
Because it completely undercuts the best moment of this story.
The only moment of this story.
Not entirely true. We've got this part here.
All right. So,
But the first good moment of the story, of this one.
Yeah.
Because everything else was exposition dump that you could have put in the Planeswalker's Guide.
Yeah.
This was the first good moment of your story. And so instead of ruining it ahead of time, you ruined it immediately afterwards. Immediately afterwards.
Yep.
Because you know what you could have done if you wanted to reveal the card? Reveal it with its alt art first. With the, oh, well, it's the what if. This is the what if art.
Yeah.
The story ended with us not knowing if Nahiri would be completed or not. But if she is, here's what she would look like. Will Malera get there in time? Stay tuned to the stories to find out. Come back tomorrow. Read more. Come to our website. Give us clicks. Give us ad revenue. Nope.
It's basic marketing, guys.
Nope. No, that's
literally.
That's ridiculous, Amy. Come on. We gotta tell them.
They've been doing this shit since the beginning of time. I mean, that's literally, you know. You couldn't get more basic with that kind of marketing, honestly.
Yeah.
Leave
them wanting more, as opposed to just completely undercutting the work that a different department in your office did.
Just please hire marketers. or just one who knows something.
Nah, that person would be so overworked they'd quit immediately.
Just anything. Just pay me to do it. Or just ask me to do it for free at this point. I don't even care. I'm just so desperate for you to have anybody with any kind of slight business sense.
As with anything, you agree, you disagree, you have more to say on it, comments down below, please. We want to hear from you. This is obviously something that we're passionate about. Story's not over yet, or review's not over yet.
No.
One more big thing to talk about, because that's the thing that I referenced here.
The best thing.
Yes. So, oh, I guess we can talk about this. I wrote Kaito. Tyvar said this. When Kaito and Tyvar were adding the Hex Gold to their weapons, the Mirren who they were talking to said that the Hex Gold wouldn't prevent you from being completed or being vulnerable to the glistening oil.
Right.
But it would buy you time. And Tyvar's response was, time is all we need.
That's not true. Yes, they need time. They need a lot more time because they're very much in a time crunch, which is why Nahiri can't be helped prior to having to do this fight. But they still very much need to not just have time. Like, Malera can apparently heal people if they're very only slightly Phyrexianized, right?
Yeah.
But she can't do that for a huge group of people. Like, her capabilities are not going to be that amazing where she can just be like, this horde of people and just like sprinkle her magic upon them all and have them all turn unphyrexianized. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, you need a lot more than just time. You need to not be Phyrexians. Mm-hmm. Because apparently that means he's willing to become a Phyrexian. That doesn't help.
Yeah. So.
And I mean, and that's something I never understood. People saying like, "Oh, I'm willing to die for the cause." It's like, okay, but if you're alive, like you can actually help the cause. if you're dead already, you can do nothing else at that point. So,
because dead is dead.
Please don't die. Maybe like try to do the smart thing and not die.
And then finally, the story started with Elspeth. The story ends with Elspeth, and by that I mean from her perspective. And I'll read this quote, because it's literally the last couple of paragraphs of the story. She paused, looking at the encampment around her. It was so transitory, so temporary, and yet enduring. This was what remained of the resistance. This was where Mirrodin took back its destiny and rose again, damaged but free. Or was added to the books of the dead forever. They had to win. They had to. Not just for the multiverse, for the Mirrans who died to get them this far, and for the Mirrans yet to come, who deserved so much better than this broken plane. More determined than ever, Elspeth stepped onto the final cart, nodded to the elves operating the pump, and made her own descent into the shadows of New Phyrexia. And that is just where the story ended. I mean, I would want to know what happens next. I would have to wait 2 whole days, guys. 2 whole days to read the next story. Let alone a week, which is what we used to have to wait. Back in my day, I would have to wait a whole week to find out what happened next. 2 whole days I'd have to wait. But don't worry, you'd have 2 stories to tide you over in between.
And you'd have plenty of spoilers in the form of cards telling you what happened, despite not wanting to learn it that way.
Yeah, I hope if I misspoke, they're previews, not spoilers, right? I try to be better about that. It's not your fault, especially if I said it before as well.
But it is spoiling it.
It's spoiling the story, but the cards are previews because they when they are released by Wizards intentionally or by the people who have gotten preview cards, they're previews. When they are leaked by people, they're leaks, but also spoilers. It's just, I try to be better about that, so I apologize. Technically, I misspoke there.
Well, when you release them 5 seconds after your story, and the story doesn't actually tell what happened in the card, they're spoilers. Because you did it wrong.
Yep. You did it backwards. Hey, we have... Oh, did you want to talk about this more?
I don't have anything to say about it. It speaks
awesome.
for itself. It's amazing.
Sure.
That's
sure.
it.
Yeah, okay.
If you didn't like that part, then you didn't read it. Or there's something wrong. Or you're a Phyrexian.
Yeah, that line does not further New Phyrexia, so I do not care for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say about it.
That's fine.
It's just great.
Yeah.
And that's the part that makes you remember that Shawna McGuire wrote this story.
And like I said, that part and the part with Nahiri and Malera are easily the best parts of the story. No questions asked. And they start so late in the story that it's just, you have to get through all the exposition that you could have gotten from a Cool Stuff Inc. article or from the Planeswalker's Guide if and when they released it at a time that made sense.
Yeah.
So, we will be back this Thursday, barring any complications. We're going to try our best. We'll be back this Thursday with the next episode, which will be side story number 3. I believe that's correct, right? Yes, because the last 2 side story, yeah. So we'll be back, I believe, with side number 3. But regardless, we'll be back on Thursday with another JaAR. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. You'll get the notification as soon as the video comes out, whatever it happens to be. Like I said, I think it's side 3. Sorry. My list is over there, and I'm over here.
It's almost like if they did it consistently in the same order every time and in a logical order, you wouldn't need to make a list.
Maybe. Nah, it's probably my fault. It's the children who are wrong. Anyway, please let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We were passionate about a lot of things that we talked about today. That does not mean you are not allowed to disagree with us. You absolutely should. If you disagree, we want to know why. Yeah. Let us know so that maybe we were wrong. Maybe. And so that you can open our eyes. Maybe there's something that we missed. Maybe there's something that we didn't understand. And if you know that and you want to tell us that, comments down below. That's what they're for.
Maybe you have some secret knowledge that you could impart on us.
Which, by the way, it's happened before. You can PM us on Twitter, links down in the description box below, or our business email is on the channel and on Twitter as well. But people from Wizards have done that before. They've emailed us or messaged us and told us things, and I love that. That's super helpful for us to understand stuff. I like that. So if, because it helps, right? Yeah. I don't need to be sitting here bad-mouthing you all the time. That's not my point. That's not what I'm trying to do. But
it's not what we actually want.
But if you're making decisions that make no goddamn sense, you know I'm going to talk about it. I'm not just going to be like, la-di-da, it's fine. It's not. And I can't not talk about that. So, anyway. But because of that, because I can't not talk about it, when it relates to the story, when it affects the story, and when it negatively impacts the story, I think that when I get to talk about it, you get to talk about it, and you all get to tell us your opinions in the comments down below. I think that's a great way for all of you to join us as we show off our...
#Vorthos Pride.
That's right. Super important. As I said, we are going to do our best to be back on Thursday with more of this for you, so stay tuned. We're also live, as I mentioned, every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also have 2 other channels, Video Games for All
and Gluten Free for All.
And if you have not checked those out, those are also linked down in the description box below. And then last but not least, please don't forget, if you're enjoying the things that we're doing on this channel, in addition to subscribing and ringing the bell on all of our channels, this one and the other 2, please don't forget that likes and shares go a very long way, and we really appreciate any and all support that you are willing to give, because we love this. We want to keep doing it, and we appreciate all of you joining us on this journey. So, for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.